Hi, everybody. Welcome to Next in Media. I'm Mike Shields. My guest this week is Marc McCollum. He is the Chief Innovation Officer at Raptive. Hey, Marc. How's it going? Thanks for being here.
Hello. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Psyched to talk to you because you are in the middle of a lot of interesting intersections of trends and you are here to represent the open web. If you didn't know that.
All right.
But I think it's probably good. Like, if you're deep in the industry, you know Raptive, but maybe not everybody does. So tell people what Raptive is.
Yeah, happy to. So we're a media company. We're a unique media company because we work with content creators who create content for the open web, as you mentioned. We have about 6,000 content creators in our network, and we work with them to help them grow their business through monetization, helping them grow their audience, helping them grow their email newsletters, helping them tell their stories. We have a reach of around 225 million monthly uniques. We're top 10 on ComScore. We're number one on big categories like food, family, lifestyle. And yeah, that's us.
And when you say creators, I think some people's minds are going to go to YouTubers. Are we talking mostly text publishers or not necessarily?
We're talking publishers who create content for the open web. And a lot of that is text, right? A lot of that is writing posts and articles.
By the way, I'm pro text.
Good. What used to be often called bloggers.
Right.
That's been our core creator profile. But more and more, those same creators are creating video content for their website or for other channels. So we don't look at it as
they're multi. And again, it's hard to generalize because you got a lot of partners. Are most of them? You would think of the blogger doing this in their spare time. Are most of these people making a living doing this? Is it range?
There's certainly a range, but yes, most of them make a living, and many of them make a very nice living.
Like this is their life, or this is their career. I see.
For sure.
Okay.
On the low end, we take creators into our network that have about 50,000 monthly page views, which is still, some level of momentum. And at that level, it may be something that they're building up, but pretty soon,
not nothing. But you're not you're not just having one post here or there. You're serious about this.
Absolutely. At the high end, we have creators that make millions of dollars.
Okay. And then the obvious question, I guess, is why does a publisher have a chief innovation officer? Because you think of it's unfair that publishers they're not tech companies necessarily. They're not innovative. They're not innovative. They kind of use the tools in the market, and that's that. What do you do there?
Yeah, well, it's no secret to you or any of your listeners, I'm sure, that media is in the midst of incredible disruption, has been and continues to be, probably more than any other industry. And so in light of that, I think any media company with the scale of Raptive should obviously be thinking about how to innovate to serve the creators or publishers that are part of the network, as well as the audience and the advertisers. So we think it's central to how we serve the market.
Interesting. Okay.
So I spend most of my time really listening to the market. So that means spending time with our creators, our enterprise publishers, advertisers, and seeking to understand the audience that all of them serve. And then based on that, trying to find the best ways that we can efficiently differentiate in terms of how we serve our creators.
In terms of like what tools you should build, what ads you should promote, those like data you should.
And how to serve them. Like our value proposition to creators once upon a time was join our network and we'll help you make more money. And we really, built this business on the back of programmatic advertising that has since evolved to a broad set of advertising services, including direct. But we also realized that what creators often need is a partner who can help them really grow their business. And that means growing their figuring out how to help them run their business.
An ad network, but not business development.
So that's what I spend most of my time focused on. When we talk about innovation, those are the areas of focus that we prioritize.
Interesting. Okay. So you know where I'm going with this. There's been a lot of, scary headlines or dire predictions about just, the open web in general. It's troubled. It's doomed. But I think maybe we should kind of break down like what that means. We're both coughing here. Sorry. Because there's a lot been going on the last couple of years and they're all different pieces.
Yeah.
Where do you, I guess we could start with what's been going on with there's the Google search change that's happening. There's like the privacy sandbox, cookie delay stuff, and then we can get into AI. We have to get to that. But talk about something like what is going on with Google search, like the helpful update that people may or may not know.
Well, I mean, all of the things you mentioned are related to each other, but we can definitely start with search because it's critically important to nearly every creator and publisher. And over the last 2 decades has become the primary source of traffic across the open web.
For a time, it was social, and that really has changed.
It has, and across the Raptive network, probably about 58% of traffic into our 6,000 websites comes from Google in one way.
Okay.
So it's important to all of these individual content creators. It's important to our business, and it's important to most big media companies who have a large presence on the open web. And you're right, Mike. It's definitely been an area of change and disruption, really over time, but certainly over the last couple of years. You mentioned the helpful content updates. Google has always routinely done periodic algorithm updates to make sure that it's continuing to promote and reward the sites that have the most relevance and usefulness to its users. It's begun doing that on a more frequent basis and doing it in a way that's driving more change than in the past through what they've called their helpful content updates. And the goals of that are something that I think most of us would be aligned to. We want to be promoting website links that are most helpful to the users based on their intent in their search, as well as the content on the website.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're not in their head, but what is your understanding of what's like? This very much to me reminds me of the demand media era where Google they didn't like that they didn't love the idea that publishers were sort of playing the search or gaming it and creating and building a business off of, what content that they felt was not that high quality or not worthy of an advertiser's time or user's time. Is this a similar dynamic? What are they worried about when they try and make these helpful updates?
Well, you're right. I'm not in their head, so I don't know what they've said publicly and what we've kind of seen in the market is that they are promoting content that's coming from publishers that have more scale and higher, therefore, in many cases, stronger reputation. And what that means is there are others who lose out on that, who are kind of smaller content creators, including many in the Raptive network. Now, like we said at the beginning of the conversation, we have a broad range, including some who are relatively big, and they have continued to see strong traffic. But certainly throughout our network, we've seen some of the mid-size and smaller sites really be hit hard.
And why, again, I keep interrupting. I'm sorry. Why, like, I can understand if Google is trying to use this kind of thing to root out made for advertising sites or AI slop. Why hit, I would think they want to champion publishers with real audiences, right? Small or large. Why hit, is this an unintended consequence, or they really want to root out like small publishers for some reason?
It's hard to know. I agree with you that should be their intention.
Yeah.
That's not what we see. The other thing that's happened through these helpful content updates is a pretty obvious promotion of forums, most prominently Reddit.
Reddit, right. Reddit is all over your search results these days. It was in a way it wasn't years ago.
That started with the helpful content updates, and that is has definitely taken search traffic away from publishers who create original content outside of the forums. Reddit, as you may know, did a big deal with Google about a year ago to make their content available for AI. That was around the same time that Google started promoting Reddit content in the search results. It's hard to know what may have driven that, but that's something we've seen. You bring this up though, and it's interesting to talk about the helpful content updates, but really that's like scratching the surface when it comes to search and the changes in search. And our real concern is around what Google is doing with AI.
All right, so let's get into that because you've there's a general the general thinking of AI search is going to change the era of a million links to I'm going to get an answer and or a couple links but it's going to be much harder for the third page of results to show up anymore. And that's, publishers have been either fighting this or cutting checks to Google. There was a story in Axios, I think it was last week, about how AI searches are up for publishers, but they're not making up for the loss in traffic. So yeah. I guess I'm asking, are you seeing that generally? What are you seeing among your publishers? Are they freaking out? Is this a problem? What's going on?
Yes, it's a problem. It's absolutely a problem, and it's one of several problems. If you look at what Google has implemented in AI overviews and what they have in their experimentation labs, which is called AI mode, both of them very clearly suggest that Google's shifting its model from being a search engine to being an answer engine.
Yeah,
and is endeavoring to provide answers to search queries directly in Google, and thereby limiting the need for users to click out to the open web. That's problematic for a few reasons. I'll start just with the fundamental challenge, which is it's copyright infringement. I mean, they are taking copyrighted content that has been originally produced and copyrighted by the individual publishers and creators out on the open web, and they're repurposing it and restating it for their own commercial purpose. And in doing so, cutting the producer of that copyrighted content, their creators and publishers, completely out of any commercial opportunity related to their work that they published. So that in of itself is entirely problematic.
Problematic, yes.
Problematic. But beyond that, it is creating and has the opportunity to create even more havoc for publishers of all sizes, and particularly those that are kind of mid and small, who really losing call it 25% or more of their search traffic would put them out of business.
Yeah, so, that's not good for anybody, but that's brutal if you're a mid-sized publisher, a small publisher.
Exactly. And then, the bigger ones face the same type of challenge. I mentioned 25%. We've done a bunch of analysis because we have 6,000 websites in our network. We have probably the best data set of anybody in terms of how traffic's flowing on the internet. And as we see these changes come through, we can see the impacts. And, our early analysis suggested that if AI overviews fully rolled out, it would impact about 25% of search traffic to the open web, would just be obliterated.
Putting aside, I'm assuming most of your publishers are not in the news business. So maybe putting that aside, is it hitting any one particular, is it killing the food blogger, but fine for travel, or is it hurting everybody?
It's hurting everybody. You mentioned travel. That is probably the worst hit industry at this point, but we're seeing it hit travel, gaming, sports, family, music, any kind of evergreen or lifestyle content that, is very suitable for an AI response. The challenge, of course, practically is you have the AI response, which in many cases will just satisfy what the user was looking for, even if it is copyright infringement. And then secondly is just the lack of attribution or accurate attribution. So even with the AI response, sometimes they'll list links. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they list the wrong links. And, if the user decides to click out, is certainly at a much lower frequency than they did before.
So even if one of your publishers does make it into the answer in some respect, it can be wrong or not even that. It's not even that helpful.
That's right. Or, we see cases where they'll show an AI response that is verbatim quoting one of our creators, but then the attribution link is actually going out to
is wrong.
Okay. So that they have some work to do to continue to refine the product, and I'm sure some of these challenges will be cleaned up over time. But what's obvious is that fundamentally Google is looking to keep more and more of their users inside of Google's platform rather than sending them out to the open web.
I want to come back to this.
You're starving publishers and creators.
Yeah, right.
Have built their businesses around the dependence on that traffic.
I'm going to come back to Google in one sec, but I'm going to ask several naive questions, because you said Google is 58% of traffic. It's really important. Are you seeing the same kind of AI impact on Bing? Or others? Or are you seeing any kind of from ChatGPT or the Chinese one, DeepSeek? What am I? Is that?
Yeah.
What are you seeing any upside? Like, are other sources coming on stronger or no?
No. And if you think about all of their business models are around answering the questions.
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same problem.
Their usage is shifting from Google to ChatGPT or
Perplexity,
Google,
whatever. Yeah.
Perplexity or whatever. Those platforms are also built around keeping the user inside their platform. And listen, they all have, or most of them have links to websites, and we see traffic come through those smaller platforms or those emerging platforms. Yeah. But it's tiny for us. Like less than 0.2% of our overall traffic is coming through these emerging AI platforms.
Okay.
I don't think that correlates to usage. I think usage is actually much higher, but those platforms by design are not meant to send traffic out to the internet the way Google search.
That's not what Google was built to do that. That's what it is. Yeah. Or that's what it was for 20 years. Okay. A couple more stupid questions. So you can, every publishers had different reactions. Like the Times has sued OpenAI, right? Others have cut check, or others have made deals. Reddit cut them a check. I don't know that you guys are in that. Are you in that any sort of position to either take them to court, pay them, which seems like it's not the right way this should work, but that seems work for Reddit, or some other kind of alternative? Like, do you have any leverage or financial wherewithal to do that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of just ran through the options or most of the options. Start by just saying, like, Google has not done any deals with any publishers outside of Reddit. And while the terms of that deal are not disclosed, I don't think it was Reddit paying Google, as you suggested. I think Google is paying Reddit a licensing fee for their content. That's our understanding, but we don't know for sure. Some of the other platforms have done deals with publishing companies, but Google has not. Only Reddit, as far as we know. And based on our experience talking to them, they don't seem willing to entertain doing that more broadly.
Right.
So that's that option. The lawsuit option, as you mentioned, is certainly one to consider. And there are some big players, like you mentioned, who are actively doing that, or to our knowledge, exploring doing that. And for us, it's fair to say, like, all options like that should be on the table. Yeah. There's pros and cons to a big lawsuit. And then the third kind of path for remedy is something that might be handed down by the government.
That was my next question. Can you? It's very ironic. We're talking about this in the middle of Google potentially getting broken up.
That's right.
For other alleged abuses of the publishing community. So can you appeal to lawmakers? Will that take 20 years to have any fruit? Like, what's going on there?
We spent the Raptive leadership team spent a good bit of time in DC last year exploring this, both with legislators and regulators. And it's no surprise to you or anyone listening to this podcast, I'm sure, that the climate in DC has shifted quite a bit since last year. It is also focused on other priorities right now.
Yeah,
fair to say. So we don't have a lot of optimism that in the current administration, with the current priorities, that a legislative solution.
What about the states? Can you go to California and make a big stink about this? Does that kind of thing work?
Certainly, all of that can be on the table, and it's all things that take time, energy, focus, and is kind of best done when there's multiple publishers who are aligned and making the same asks together. So.
Okay, so there's all these big, existential threats where you're just taking a very negative tone. What can you, there was, when Google first became really important, all of a sudden you had this rise of this SEO business, cottage industry. Yeah. Is there anything similar? Can you do stuff to your sites to make sure you become the answer in these newer engines? Is that a fool's errand? Like, what can you do to?
I don't think it's a fool's errand, but it's certainly not something that's understood with the same level of sophistication as SEO is these days.
Right.
But our understanding, and we have an awesome SEO team at Raptive, I think the best in the business. And as they look at it, and as we look at it, what seems to be true is that the same principles that drive success in the search algorithms tend to drive success in the AI.
Okay.
And that is authentic content that's high quality from a trusted source with high authority that's been produced recently.
User experience, links out, those kind of things matter.
All of that. I mean, the user experience on the site matters less because Google's not sending you to the site.
Right. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's true. Why does that matter if you're not going there?
And things like that. But what we believe right now, based on kind of the limited data set that we have over the last year, is that creators and publishers who produce high quality content are the most likely to show up in those AI responses. But again, the showing up in the AI response doesn't mean the same thing, because an AI response,
it's not as lucrative
from multiple sources, put back together in kind of Google's own language, and then there may or may not be attribution links.
It doesn't equal traffic, which equals revenue, or it has historically.
That's right.
Okay, so all this being said, what's kind of going on with advertising? It's an interesting time. The digital advertising is still growing at a nice clip. Let's put aside the crazy tariff moment we're in, if we can. But, there is this feeling like, okay, do brands care about the open web? Are they going to keep funneling money there? But then there's hopeful signs like, well, if we bring retail media to the table, or data to the table, or all these new identifiers, maybe there's a way to kind of keep monetization rolling. So that's a lot of questions. What's kind of the state of advertising amidst this traffic haircut? Are your publishers struggling? Are they doing okay? What's going on?
So definitely putting the tariff
end of the world conversation
aside, because I do think that's going to introduce a new variable.
Yep.
But if it's so new, it's hard to know exactly how that's going to play out. So let's put that aside, as you said. We're seeing very strong demand from advertisers, probably the strongest we've ever seen. On our direct sales side, we just had our strongest quarter ever in Q1. We are our team is actively closing campaigns for Q2 and beyond. And advertisers really like being associated with authentic creators and the lifestyle content that tends to be associated with them in the Raptive network. So
why? So that makes total sense to me. Other than this, it seems contradictory to this stuff we all just talked about. Like, oh, you're losing traffic; it's a bad situation. Why are you? Other than you have a great sales team or you have great content, why are brands coming to you more? What's working?
Well, I think the risks that we spent the last 10, 15 minutes talking about certainly impact traffic, and therefore from an advertiser's perspective, it potentially impacts the reach of a campaign.
Yeah, you look smaller on comp score, you have fewer impressions. Right.
Yeah, it doesn't impact the quality of the content or the impact and performance of advertising when it's on that site. In fact, the traffic that we pull in from other sources outside of just Google tends to perform for advertisers even better because it's even higher intent. So traffic that's coming in from direct entry or coming in from platforms like Pinterest or email newsletter campaigns and so forth really performs for our advertisers. The other thing that, we spend a lot of time trying to understand, just given the focus of our business, is the value of open web advertising versus social. And in particular, when we think about creators, you mentioned earlier, oftentimes people think about YouTubers, and while that's certainly true, what we found, we did a survey, a study last year with Nielsen. 58% of people who are 18 to 34 feel a stronger connection to a creator that they follow on the open web than to their real life friends. And so that's indicated that, okay.
I think that's positive, unless that means they don't have good friends.
Assuming that real life friends are good friends. And 50% of our survey respondents said they found open web creators more inspiring, uplifting, useful, and trusted than social. So like we're seeing, we're getting that type of response from the market, and advertisers are responding to it. We also have, we talked about AI as it relates to traffic and the risk to our business, but we're also using AI to drive value in the business and in particular in our advertiser offerings. So, in particular, we have recently launched a new product that we call Raptive Intelligence and Mindshare Targeting.
Okay.
And it essentially analyzes all of the content in our network. We have about 5 million unique pieces of content across our network. And across each of those pieces of content, understands the tone, the mindset, the context of both the creator and the reader when they're engaging in that content. And then we combine that with data from all of our visits and page views and where we're getting engagement, time on site, ad impressions to build like really rich audience profiles that then creates mindset personas that we can use with our advertisers in their targeting.
So not just we have a bunch of food lifestyle, but we have you can quantify intent or where a person is in their funnel journey.
When people are on certain pages that they tend to be in certain moments of shopping intent or certain moments of mindset that can appeal to certain advertisers. And we can only do that because, number one, the scale of the Raptive network, which is
you got to have a lot of data to make that.
And then secondly, the AI tools that we've introduced to be able to do this in what 2 years ago we could have done and we're doing in some ways, but it was highly manual and was leveraging more like data science versus like true AI. And now we're able to leverage AI to do this at scale rapidly and in real time. To help advertisers target the right people, right sites at the right time.
Right.
They're willing to pay a premium for it. So it's a win for our advertisers. It's a win for our creators, and it's a win for Raptive.
It's gonna be hard to ask you to sum all this up in one or short answer. But what given that makes total sense to me. You're leaning into that. How much have you been impacted by the roller coaster of cookies, no cookies? And or Google's sandbox supposed solution or these new identities? Are you living and dying to run your business or make a decision for your business on one of the other or all of them, or
not anymore? I think a year and a half we would have said yes to that question. And because of all the cookie, are they or aren't they that's been happening over the last couple of years, we invested in our own identity solution. And, in doing that, it really
you didn't jump in with like one of the alternative IDs out there necessarily.
We have partnerships across the market and leverage data from different industry partners, but we built our own identity solution that we think is best in class and only available for Raptive creators, and that has really broken our dependency on whether or not Google's gonna do anything with the third-party cookies. So we're feeling that risk has been mitigated in our business.
All right. And then last thing, I know we're jumping around quite a bit, but are you, given the uncertainty we're talking about and all these changes, again, hard to generalize. We have so many different creators, but are you seeing, do you think you're going to see a lot of them shift to, I need to have an email newsletter. I need to be much bigger on YouTube. I'm going to go all in on Pinterest or something versus I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, which was a traditional blogger thing that is harder to make a living on. I don't know.
They already are.
Yeah.
And we're helping them do that. So it's part of our business strategy to help them grow their audience on any platform, because that all ultimately drives back to their overall monetization.
Right.
So yes, they need to diversify.
Which is not easy for everybody to do, right? If you're take it from me.
And by the way, each platform is its own story. We could do a 30-minute episode on each platform here. But, Pinterest continues to be a great platform for our creators. I heard you had Malik Ducard on a couple weeks ago on your podcast. He's a great friend of Raptive. We collaborate with them to find ways to help creators serve audience. They're also dealing with a lot of AI challenges with the content that's being produced there, and we're trying to work with them to help to remedy that. But Pinterest is a big one. You mentioned email newsletters. We work with creators to help them build out their email newsletters, capture as many subscribers as they can, have the best, most compelling email content that drives really high CPMs when users come directly from a newsletter with high intent. We're helping them build their brand across lots of platforms. You mentioned YouTube. We have a team focused only on YouTube at Raptive to help creators build their YouTube networks, because we know that helps them build their brand, that helps them build their brand recognition, and then that flows through to the performance of their websites. So we're focused on.
You just can't escape Google. They're killing you one day.
It's impossible, right?
Yeah.
To do all of those things and have it make up for
right
60% of your business,
right?
As the average Raptive creator has,
right?
Dependency on Google.
Well, Mark, super fascinating stuff. Thank you so much for your time. Let's talk again down the road, because this is going to be an evolving story over time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.